Hey, guys! Now some of you may know that I've been on a quest to find my next main DAW, and today I'm happy to announce I'm going to tell you which one it is. So I'm going to tell you what I think is the best DAW for me at the moment. I will tell you a little later on in the video, but hold on. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you why I didn't pick all of the other DAWs that I considered more or less. Now, of course, we're gonna have to start with Studio One because Studio One has been my main DAW for over 6 years. I really loved using Studio One. I still do. Still think it's one of the best DAWs on the market. It's truly an all-purpose DAW, very easy to use, great arsenal of some musical tools. So then why am I leaving Studio One? Well, it's actually very simple. So I've been looking to get a little bit more into live looping, and Studio One does not have live looping features. And I know some people in the comments told me, no, Studio One does have live looping features. And yes, in some way you could say that in the show page there are some features that you might describe as live looping features. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean when I say live looping features is the kind of Ableton Live-like 8x8 grid clip launching features. That's what I mean. And to be clear, Studio One does not have that. I really hope that they would add that to Studio One 6. Now, as I found out that they didn't, I was a little bit disappointed, but the disappointment itself was not the reason that I started looking elsewhere. It's simply a practical reason. Now, of course, I still have Studio One 5 on my computer. I will still be using it. Still have a lot of unfinished songs on Studio One. But at the moment, my new main DAW is not Studio One. Now, my next main DAW is also not Cubase. Now, Cubase was recommended to me also by some viewers in the comments. Well, I haven't used Cubase, or at least not for a while. I have used Cubase in the past, but that was a long time ago. I don't know exactly the year, but I know I was on version 3 or something like that. 3.1, I don't remember exactly, but you know, that's hardly very relevant anymore. Now, of course, I also did a little additional research into Cubase, and from what I've seen and heard, you know, of course, Cubase nowadays also is a great choice for many. I think that it has some similarities in some ways to Studio One also, I think, maybe. Little bit. Anyway, a fun fact that I didn't know until recently is that Studio One was founded by some ex-Steinberg employees, so Steinberg, the creators of Cubase, some ex-Steinberg employees who also worked on Cubase. They founded Studio One. Isn't that funny? No? But anyway, Cubase is also kind of an all-purpose DAW. It also comes with some amazing musical tools, but Cubase also has a long-standing reputation. They've been around for many years, and along the way, they've created some groundbreaking technology. And on top of that, you know, they're still around, and they're still one of the best DAWs on the market. So hats off to Steinberg and Cubase. Now, unfortunately, Cubase has another thing in common with Studio One, and that is that it doesn't have live looping features. So my next main DAW is not Cubase. Now, also not my first choice is Reaper. Now, to be honest, I considered Reaper for about 10 seconds, but I did consider it. Now, Reaper has some very strong strengths. Can you say it like that? Strong strengths? So it's very affordable, it's very lightweight, so not a lot of pressure on your CPU. It is extremely flexible, and that's of course especially because of the scripts that it allows users to create to make Reaper behave exactly like you want it to. So someone mentioned to me in the comments that he thinks that eventually someone will come up with some kind of script that will make live looping possible in Reaper. And to be honest, I think he might be right. But the thing is, there are no live looping features yet. And also, you know, I think Reaper is amazing if you're into customizing things and maybe writing scripts and things like that. I mean, it's awesome for that. But to many people, including myself, convenience is also very important sometimes. You know, and when I say convenience in this context, I mean, I don't want to spend days or weeks or years, you know, customizing my DAW before finally it looks and operates the way I want it to. I just want to throw something on my computer that works immediately out of the box. By the way, I still think that I have Reaper 6 on my computer. I think I purchased it when it came out. But anyway, it's not going to be my main DAW. Now my next main DAW is also not Logic Pro. Now I have used Logic Pro in the past, before I switched to Studio One, Logic Pro had been my main DAW for quite some years. Also loved using Logic Pro. It's also very affordable, maybe not as affordable as Reaper, but still pretty affordable. I really like the interface. It also comes with some very advanced modern features. It also comes with live looping features. The only problem is Logic doesn't run on Windows, and I don't see myself switching back to Mac anytime soon. I think. You never know, but I don't think so. So not Logic Pro. Now the next one on the list was kind of a big surprise to me, and that is Mixcraft by Acoustica. It's not a very well-known DAW. I had heard about it before, but I'd never tried it until recently, so I downloaded a trial version, and it was very surprising. I mean, it might not be the very best looking DAW in the world, but it's really a full-featured DAW. I was really surprised at what it has to offer, which is a lot. It also has some live looping features, and I really considered going with Mixcraft. Maybe not as my first main DAW, but maybe to use it alongside of Studio One, something like that. But in the end, I didn't. And the reason, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think you have to go with your feelings, and I just didn't feel 100% comfortable with Mixcraft. It's also it seems like a very small company, which sometimes can be an advantage, but it also seems that it has a pretty small community relatively, or at least in comparison to Ableton Live or Studio One or something like that. And I feel that sometimes having a community around you, so to speak, can be very beneficial. If there's something you need to know, if you have some questions, and I really value that. I guess that might be one of the reasons why I didn't go with Mixcraft. But I'm really keeping an eye out for the next version of Mixcraft. Mixcraft 10 is expected to be released at the beginning or maybe the spring of next year. So I'll be very interested in that. But at the moment, Mixcraft is not going to be my main DAW. Now, another one on the list that I didn't pick is Digital Performer. Now, Digital Performer has also a long-standing reputation. It's been around for 30 plus years. Initially it was embraced by composers of, film scores, movie soundtracks, etc. But, it along the way, it developed into also a very all-purpose DAW. Digital Performer is really, it ticks a lot of boxes. It also has live looping features, and I think that they integrated that function very well. It looks very slick in Digital Performer. If I have to say something that is that the interface needs a little bit of getting used to, but other than that, it's really a very capable DAW. The reason that I didn't go with Digital Performer is very similar to why I didn't go with Mixcraft. I really trust the company, Motu, but the community seems to be, it's probably a very loyal community, just like with Mixcraft. It's probably also very loyal, but it doesn't seem a very large community in comparison to some of the others, or at least it's not very visible online. And yeah, to me, I had to make some choices, and then this is something that I consider a disadvantage. So that's why I didn't go with Digital Performer. And then there were only two left. And I have to say it was a very, very tight race. It really went back and forth. At one moment I thought, okay, this is going to be the one. And then maybe an hour later I was like, no, maybe this one. And then back again. And when it's this close, it really comes down to some details and how you feel at a certain moment. Anyway, in the end, I didn't pick Ableton Live. So why didn't I pick Ableton Live? Well, let me say, I was looking for a DAW, obviously like Studio One in terms of maturity, features, ease of use, but then with live looping features. Maybe Ableton Live came closest to that. Maybe also Digital Performer, but we talked about that. Still think that Studio One has some features that Ableton Live cannot touch, like, ease of use, routing, mixing, mastering. I still think that Studio One is ahead of Ableton Live. But still, I think that Ableton Live would have been probably the most logical choice. I mean, Ableton Live has been around for many years, very strong reputation. The product itself, it really feels like a finished product, very matured, very polished in a way. It's big on sounds. It comes with a lot of instruments. It's big on sound design. You know, it has infinite possibilities there. It has a huge community behind it. You know, all great reasons to go for Ableton Live. The only reason why I didn't pick Ableton Live is that I chose another DAW. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm gonna reveal what my new main DAW is. And my new main DAW is, you probably already have guessed it, it's Bitwig. So why did I pick Bitwig? Well, let me first talk about a few reasons why I could have just as easily have picked Ableton Live, so some cons to Bitwig. First of all, as I mentioned, Ableton Live really feels like a finished product. It's a really matured DAW. Bitwig, maybe not so much. It really feels like they're more in a kind of experimental phase, and that could be considered a con for Bitwig and an advantage for Ableton. Now, another thing is that, and that's something that I really don't like about Bitwig, or at least not in comparison to Ableton Live, and that is hardware support. Whenever someone creates some kind of hardware controller, a MIDI controller, something like that, they always have Ableton in mind and not so much Bitwig. That, of course, is a huge disadvantage. Now, luckily, and now I'm getting to the pros for Bitwig, Bitwig has a very active, a very involved community. And one of the things that they do in this community is they write scripts for certain hardware devices so that you can use those devices with Bitwig. I especially have to give a shout out to a guy called Jürgen Mosgrabe. He writes a lot of scripts for a lot of hardware controllers, not just for Bitwig, by the way. And for example, this is a Novation Launchpad X, which isn't natively supported by Bitwig, but Jürgen wrote a script for that, and that's actually what I'm using. So Jürgen, thank you for that. Of course, it would be the best, of course, would be if Bitwig would add a native support for things like this, but you know, this is the next best thing. So a very strong, very involved, active community. As I mentioned, I really value that. Now, another pro is, you know, I mentioned that Bitwig seems to be in a more kind of experimental phase, and I mentioned that as a con, but you can also consider that a pro, and I do. In fact, ironically, it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I picked Bitwig over Ableton. I think that at the moment, Bitwig is probably the most innovative DAW on the market, and that very much excites me. I mean, I think that if you're a more conventional musician, so if you only record real instruments like bass, guitar, real drums, things like that, Bitwig is probably not going to be your first choice. But for someone like me, I do primarily do all of my recordings in the box. You know, I'm kind of an in the box musician primarily. So for me, Bitwig is really a good choice. And as I mentioned, they're really doing some exciting stuff at Bitwig. So that's why I picked Bitwig. And let me mention one more thing. You know, Bitwig is also available on Linux, and that also interests me. You know, so all in all, that is why I picked Bitwig over Ableton and over all the other ones out there. So that's it. My new main DAW is Bitwig. You never know what'll happen in a year or so, but for now I'm choosing Bitwig. Let me know what you think. What is your favorite DAW? Let me know in the comments. And for now, I'm gonna thank you for watching. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you in the next video.